Hello and welcome to episode 43 of 10,000 Stitches podcast. I'm realizing that the camera is crooked. Let's see if I can adjust that. No, apparently not well enough. Anyway, episode 43 of 10,000 Stitches podcast, a weekly chit-chat all about the joys of sock knitting. My name is Andy and I'm coming to you today live from my kitchen. Although it's not really live by the time you guys are seeing it, but you know, we'll do it. Yeah, so if you were looking for me on the interwebs, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Ravelry as Purlbug, P-U-R-L-B-U-G. I've just started I've been lurking around Instagram, but I hadn't been posting anything for a while, but I'm just kind of now getting back into posting things. You can find my blog at thepurlbug.com, and then you can find the 10,000 Stitches podcast Ravelry group. Depending on where you're watching this will determine where you find links, although I'm not sure how much I will have to link today. But anyway, links to anything that I mentioned that are relevant. If you're watching this on the blog or on the Ravelry thread for this episode, everything will be linked right underneath the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, there will be a link in the description box below the video to the blog post for this episode, and then, like I said, everything will be right underneath the video there. Yeah, so this is going to be an unusual format today. Mostly just because I've had a crazy busy week and I have nothing really to talk about. So I thought that instead of just sitting down and being super boring for about 15 minutes and being like, everything's the same as last week, I thought that I would have you guys join me as I dyed a skein of yarn. Sorry, I can still hear things from the loud street outside. I would go ahead and have you guys join me as I dyed a skein of yarn, and I could kind of chit-chat about things. And yeah, I can show you kind of how I dye yarn. This is not really meant to be like a tutorial process because I'm still sort of feeling things out, and my method is very like, just do whatever and see what happens. So I don't necessarily encourage that in terms of like a tutorial format, but I thought, you know what, I'll dye some yarn, I'll chit chat about the week and what I'm doing, and we'll see how this goes. Who knows? So I'm hoping my microphone is picking me up. It looks like it is. If you guys could see the setup that I have going on right now, it's kind of a little ridiculous. But yeah, this is my kitchen. I've mentioned before that I live in a teeny tiny apartment, so this is literally the whole kitchen other than the refrigerator, which is right back behind me where I'm standing right now. So yeah, this is it. So it's not normally this clean, but I cleaned it up because I was going to be filming, so yeah. Although we do try and keep on top of things because with like that much counter space, it gets super crazy, super easy. But all I've done so far is filled up a plastic bowl with some water, and I have also filled up my pot with some water just because that takes forever and it's kind of noisy. But otherwise, and I've tied some more ties around my yarn. So this is the yarn that I'm going to be doing. This is the same base that I've been doing all my other dyeing with. This is a 75-25 BFL nylon blend. And it comes with 3 ties already in it, and then I just put another 3 in it typically. And I just use like an acrylic yarn so that it doesn't take any of the dyes so that I can find it later. But yeah, so I have this all tied up, and I'm just going to go ahead and plop it in my bowl of water. I don't typically soak it for any particular length of time. I just soak it while I'm prepping everything else, which typically winds up being while I'm filling the pot with water. So since that's already filled up, it's basically just going to soak while I'm telling you guys about what I'm going to use to dye it, and then I'll put it in the pot. Because I typically will, the way I do this is I kind of I let it soak for just a few minutes, and then I put it into the pot and then have it in the pot while the pot's heating up. I know I've seen different tutorials talk about different ways to do this. Some people bring the pot to a boil before they put their yarn in. Some people let it sit and boil I don't ever let my pot boil just because even though this is superwash yarn, I just don't really trust it. So I let the pot get plenty hot, but I don't let it boil. But I like to heat it up in the pot as the water heats up. So yeah, let's talk about what I'm using to dye my yarn. So this is a mix that was already in my fridge. I had mixed together a couple colors of Kool-Aid. So this is a combination of orange and lemon lime and berry cherry and black cherry. So I think I was trying to make brown and then kind of gave up and just started adding colors, and I put it in this little container because I realized I didn't have enough colors initially, so I just put them in here and plopped them in the fridge. And now I'm going to use it, and I think I'm going to wind up adding in a little bit of extra orange. Kind of once it's in the pot, I'm going to just sprinkle this over the top so I get kind of a variegated effect. But I can show you guys what this looks like. So it's kind of come out this very like rusty, reddy orange color, which I really like. I think it's very pretty, very like fall appropriate, which is why I'm going to add some more orange to it as well to bring out more of the like orange bits. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. As you guys can also see, I don't bother to wear gloves when I am dyeing yarn, just because normally I'm careful enough that I don't turn my hands funny colors. And the one time that I did, I actually turned my hands bright red with the yarn that I dyed that I'm making that big triangle shawl out of. I dunked my hands in that dye and turned them bright red. And I learned that if you want to take dye off of your hands, toothpaste works really well. Like just whatever toothpaste you happen to have, just squirt a big old squirt on your hands, and on your hands that are wet, obviously, and just rub it really well, like as if you were washing your hands with soap, and just rub it all over, and that will take most of the color off. It also will dry your hands out like crazy, but it works to take the color off. So pro tip. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and dump the dye into the pot and then plop the yarn in. So I think I'm going to reposition the camera a little bit while I do this. Luckily, I don't have to worry about like sound or anything because the microphone is separate from the camera. So, and I realize this is going to totally throw off the color because of the open window here, but let's see. Yeah, we'll go with it. We'll go with it. Okay, so unless, do you guys want to be really close? I suppose I could bring everything in closer. Let's try that. If you could, again, if you could see what my setup is, you would know why I seem to be off camera scooching things around. But I guess I'll bring you guys in close for now so you can kind of see what I'm doing. And then maybe when we're waiting for it to warm up, I will do more chit-chatty business. But let's see how close I can get you while keeping my computer plenty far away. Yeah, that'll do. Let's go with that. Okay, so now I just have to duck around all of the wires while being off camera. I'm sure this is super exciting to watch. Okay. So I have my dye. I'm just going to go ahead and dump that into the pot and just kind of really swirl some water around, make sure I get all the color out of there. It looks very kind of Halloween-y appropriate. It's a very kind of reddy, orangey, bloody sort of color. So, all right, so that's that. So I am going to go ahead and give that a stir. This is my spoon that I use for all of my yarn dyeing, which you can tell because it's kind of pink. But I mean, the nice thing is that because, you know, this is all food safe, like it's all just Kool-Aid and stuff, the fact that the spoon is kind of pink doesn't really matter. We still actually use it for like normal food stuff too. Same with this pot. This is just like the big pot that we have, and you know, it works. So I'm gonna turn the stove on to, I typically turn it on to medium low-ish, and then I'm going to try and get to my yarn. And so I'm just going to go ahead and take my yarn out of here and just plop it right into here without getting water everywhere. Plop. There we go. And then I typically use this clear bowl as well for rinsing out the yarn later, so I just kind of keep it handy. But I'm just going to kind of give the yarn a little bit of a swirl in there. I probably used more water than I needed to, but hey, what can you do? I've had times where I haven't used enough water and then it's really hard to get the yarn fully submerged. So it's always kind of a struggle for me to, like I said, I'm still learning, so I'm still trying to kind of figure out like what works best. But yeah, so at this point I'm just going to kind of let it warm up. I typically let it warm up decently slowly because I don't want to like risk burning the yarn or anything. And I don't know if you guys will wind up being able to see this on camera, but like I said, I don't like to let it come to a boil but kind of the time when I decide I'm done heating it and then I'll plop the lid on and let it heat is at the point where like steam really starts to be coming off the surface of the water. And I feel like everyone kind of has seen that when they've been, boiling water for like pasta or something. Like, it'll start to steam really crazy and then it'll start to boil. So I pretty much stop it at that steaming phase. So, and it seems to work okay. It's not as if there's always a bunch of dye rinsing out of my yarn. So I'm gonna go ahead and move the camera back so that we can kind of chit chat a little bit while this does its thing. So let's see if I can scooch it up. This, the little like ball bearing control thing on this tripod is a little stiff, so sometimes it doesn't want to move very well. Okay, let's do this. So let me grab the only thing I've been working on, and I'll show you guys that, although I haven't made a lot of progress on it. So this is my work in progress. I think I showed you guys last week I had one of these broken seed stitch socks done, and I think last week I was partway through the foot on the second one, like I was maybe like here. So I did manage to get the heel turn, and I am working my way up the leg, but progress has been very slow on this. Yeah, and that's it. And then in terms of like what's coming up next, it's all the same as it was last week. Hopefully I'm going to be doing the paranormal socks next, and then after that pucker. And at this rate, who knows if I'll get very far beyond that, because things have just been going slow. So let's talk about why things have been going so slow. So, let's see. I'm trying to think of this past week. So this past week, I have been crazy busy at work trying to do some, put together some experiments. I don't know if I've mentioned this. I think I've mentioned it. So like I was trying to build these like circuit boxes that would be used for one of the new lab experiments that is debuting this week. So, speaking of that, I'm currently recording on Sunday, October 2nd, and this episode will go live on Tuesday, October 4th. So this week, this new experiment was going to be live, which meant that it had to be done by this week. So, and it was just taking a lot longer than I thought it was going to kind of get it all put together and get enough of these setups made. So I basically spent my whole week being super stressed out about that and trying to get that done. And then, on top of kind of my like normal teaching load, and we have a test this week, like Monday, so it will be the day before this episode goes up, tomorrow, my time. I have a test in the class that I'm taking, and so that was kind of like stressful, and I was like trying really hard to get all my homework done for that class, because our homework is typically done on Friday, or due on Fridays. But it's like due Friday at like 11, and like I have to teach at noon on Fridays, so I always try to get it in by Thursday. So I was like scrambling to get my homework done, and I went to go turn it in, and it said, oh, we're not going to collect homework this week, because of the test. And I was like, I mean, that's nice because, otherwise I probably, to be realistic, wouldn't have done it. But it like caused me a whole bunch of stress that I really didn't need trying to get this homework done, that it would have been nice if I would have had that time to work on the things that needed to get done first. So that was super stressful. And then I had a TA who just like didn't show up for one of his labs this week, and that was frustrating. And like he just didn't show up, and I was pretty sure that it was because he just like forgot or slept in or something. And yeah, that was the case. He just slept in. And it's super frustrating because like this guy just is not like a star TA in general. And so, so like I had to fill in for him, which took, 2 hours out of one of my days and all of that. Like I'm still behind on grading. I have stuff to grade that needs to be graded by tomorrow when I teach, and I just haven't done it yet. So, but the nice thing is that I got all of those setups built, or well, I got enough of them built to be able to say, that's enough, we're good. So yeah, but it meant that I have had no time to knit this past week. Like I kept bringing my knitting with me thinking, oh, maybe today I will get a couple minutes to do it. And like most days it would just sit in my backpack and not get taken out at all, which I mean is fair. Like I'm at work, I should be working, but typically, I have some time during the day to pick it up for a few minutes, but just no time. So yeah, that was the past week, and it was just like super stressful and super frustrating, and I'm glad that it's kind of over. you know, like I said, I didn't get all of those setups built. They are, about half of them are done, which is enough. Like, I can move on now, but I will have to build the other half eventually. And I have similar but smaller setups that now have to get built for next week for one of the other labs. So that's also going to be stressful, but they're less involved, so I'm hoping that they will go faster. So yeah, that's been my life this week. I'm trying to think of what else. I realize like I'm going horribly out of order just because, you know, that's just how things are. So that was the chit chat, I guess. Let's see, what else? Knit-along stuff. I saw that we have one more finished object, 2 more finished objects than when I recorded last week. We've had a couple of finished objects more. And I know there's a couple other ones that are in progress based on, you know, what I've seen in the chatter thread. So that's super exciting. And I'm actually thinking that this yarn, depending on how it turns out, will become the prize for the knit-along. If it comes out the way I'm expecting it to, then it will be a great prize. Otherwise, we'll see. But yeah, we just entered into October, so we are halfway through. But I still think there's definitely plenty of time for people to finish up some projects that are you know, currently in progress, or start something new and get something new done. So yeah, I'm hoping that there will be more finished objects rolling in soon. Mostly just because I want to see what other people are working on, and like I think color work is so much fun with that kind of stuff. So. But yeah, and then looking forward to the next knit-along, since we're halfway through this one. The next knit-along is going to be yarn-enhancing patterns, which are basically going to be patterns that are meant to sort of bring out the best in like a variegated or self-striping yarn, something like that. So, you know, I feel like you know, solid yarns are kind of meant to bring out the best in a pattern, and so this time, like, we're going the other way around. Like, instead of the yarn fitting to the pattern is kind of meant to fit to a certain type of yarn. So I'm really looking forward to that, because a lot of those patterns are not super intense. Like, they're sort of vanilla, like they're kind of like that just beyond vanilla sort of pattern. So I think that'll be really fun, especially kind of, you know, as we're getting into the holiday season, and, you know, a lot of people are going to be traveling and stuff, and you want like more simple knitting to kind of do during that time. I think that will be a really good way to kind of wrap up the year. And I've already been thinking a little bit about next year, kind of about like what I want my big challenge to be, because if anyone remembers, the whole point of this was that this year I wanted to knit 50 pairs of socks. And I definitely am not, you know, not getting there yet. But, you know, I figure that's kind of okay. I definitely think I have knit more pairs of socks this year than I would have otherwise. Like, I think setting that big goal definitely helped me, and it's helping me to stay motivated and keep knitting, even though I'm not going to hit the goal, like, not even close. But I've already been thinking kind of forward to next year, and thinking about like what I want my goal to be next year, because I think having a big project definitely helps. And so, you know, just to bounce ideas off you guys, because, you know, you guys are my buds. I was thinking that next year maybe my goal would be to knit like 75 things or projects, and not necessarily all socks, but probably, you know, a good portion of them socks, because obviously I really enjoy knitting socks. But I was thinking about, you know, like 75 things that are small and easily portable. So like socks, mittens, and hats probably, and maybe a shawl or two. But I definitely, you know, want to broaden my horizons just a little bit next year. We're getting a little steamy. I definitely want to broaden my horizons a little bit next year, but I want to still maintain a focus on like smaller projects. Like, I had kind of thought a little bit about like, oh, maybe I'll do sweaters next year. Like, maybe I'll do 12 sweaters. And like, that's crazy. Like, I should not do that. But I was thinking, you know, trying to do, you know, again, like a big sort of number kind of project, but for a number of things. I thought that would be fun. So let me check my recording time. All right, I think we're okay. I don't know. I I typically try to like pause it and like save it midway through, but I don't know how long my computer will actually just keep recording before it just decides it doesn't want to anymore. But I'm going to move you guys closer because we are actually now getting to the point where I want to add in my other dye, and then I'll probably cover it up soon. How much closer can I get you? There. Okay, so I think you guys can actually see it steaming. I can kind of see it on the computer screen. So this is about the point where I typically sort of decide that it's been heating long enough. So at this point, I would typically kind of maybe give it another minute or two, let it really start getting steamy, and then I would turn off the burner and cover it with a lid and just let it sit. But I am going to take my orange Kool-Aid and sprinkle that over the top, and then do what I just said. So then I will cover it and let it just sit and stew for a while. So I'm just going to go ahead and take this and just sprinkle it over the top in a not very scientific sort of way, in the hopes that that will give me some orangier patches in parts of the yarn. Sort of a space dyeing sort of thing. So, that's that. Kind of looks like some weird tomato sauce right now, but at this point I'm going to go ahead and turn off the burner. And I'm going to grab the top of this pot, which is just a big, heavy cast iron lid, and cover it up. I typically don't put the top on tight. I leave a little bit of space just because I grew up with a lot of pots that were not that didn't have super heavy lids like this, and so if you tried to put a lid on it, it would just, the steam would force it up. So it's just a habit of mine. Even though this lid is so heavy, it would take a lot of steam to force that up. But now I'm just gonna let it sit for probably a half an hour or so. I'll probably set a timer on the microwave, even though I typically get too impatient and then just check it anyway. But yeah, I will let this sit, and I will be back when it's done sitting, and then I'll kind of show you guys my process for rinsing and setting it out to dry. So I'll be back in a jump cut. Okay, so back from the jump cut. So it's been roughly half an hour and the yarn is done. So let's take a look at kind of what it looks like now. Let's bring you in and tilt the camera down. Okay, and can I get you any closer? That's about as close as it's gonna get. So I don't know how well you can see this, but so it's been sitting here for about 30 minutes with the lid on, and if I kind of move it out of the way, you can see that the water is mostly clear. It's a little weird looking because when I sprinkled the orange Kool-Aid on the top, some of it is still just sitting a little bit clumped up on the top, which is why when I can move it around, you get a little bit of orange. But if you see, for the most part, the water has gone pretty much clear, which is sort of how you know that it's done absorbing the color, right? You've absorbed all of the color out of the water, so it's done. So at this point, it's still a little bit hotter than what I would prefer to take it out. So at this point, I'm going to leave the lid off and just kind of let it sit and cool down to roughly room temperature. I'll probably get impatient and want to pick it up sooner than that. But as soon as it's done, I will take it out, and then I will move it over back into the bowl that I was soaking it in before, and then I'll let it cool down the rest of the way in there, again to about room temperature, and then rinse it out just with some dish soap. I just squirt some dish soap in and rinse it out, and then squeeze it out and hang it out to dry. So since that's not going to be very interesting, I will probably just check back tomorrow. So typically it takes them 24 to 48 hours to dry, depending on like if the windows are open and like how well air is moving. So I will probably check back in tomorrow so that I can then get all of this stitched together and edited and uploaded. I mean, it'll be mostly dry. So I'll check back in so you guys can kind of see what the final product looks like. And yeah, so I will probably say my big goodbye, well, tomorrow. But in case I forget, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later. But let's hope that I actually remember to do the proper outro tomorrow. So, sweet. Well, hello again. I realize the lighting is really bad. Anyway, so I just got home from work, and I thought I would finish up the podcast by showing you guys the results of the dyeing experiment that I did in the first half. So I'm going to kind of pull the blankets over the bed so we don't look like such slobs. And then I'll show you what the yarn turned out like. So yeah, I think this is just another example of kind of, you know, I'm still figuring out what it is that I'm doing, and I'm realizing I'm probably not in frame at all. So I apologize if that's the case. But anyway, I feel like this is just another sort of example of like kind of learning what I'm doing as I go along. But let's take a look at it. So that's what it looks like. It's showing up way, way brighter on camera than it is in real life. Let me sit down on the bed here. So it is showing up super duper bright red. And I don't know why, I don't know how I can... I'll probably mess with the colors while I'm editing to see if I can bring it down to real life a little bit more. But what I'm noticing kind of as I'm looking at it, it's, you know, it's dry, is that the orange that, you know, I sprinkled on it, if you remember, definitely is not showing up quite as much as I expected it would, which I'm finding just seems to be the case with red, is that red just, it seems like red dyes just definitely take hold above anything else. So basically what we have here is a slightly tonal red yarn. I mean, there are parts that are a little bit more orangey, which of course, at least I can't see looking through, looking at what I'm looking at in the camera right now, because it's just all so saturated for some reason. But yeah, like overall, I think it turned out well, but not, you know, anything super spectacular. But I mean, let me know what you think. Let me know if you think it's still a nice looking yarn. I mean, the fact is that even if it didn't turn out the way I expected, it's still a, you know, very kind of pretty dusty red yarn, and I don't hate it. And that's really what I've been enjoying about this whole dyeing process, is that even if it doesn't quite turn out like what I expect it to turn out like, you know, it's still yarn, and it's still usable, and it's, you know, still kind of a fun adventure. So yeah. Oh, what did I just do? I don't know. Anyway, so that's gonna be it. Yeah, I'll get this all stitched together and uploaded and all that. So thank you very much for hanging out with me in this kind of unusual episode this week. And I guess I'll see you guys next week. Bye.